Who could forget how Assassin's Creed was introduced into the world? This E3 trailer made its way onto the official game, and is an excellent representation of the premise. And while it didn't quite live up to the hype, how well did Assassin's Creed live up to this visualization? And how did the world exploration and mobility and parkour influence games that were yet to come? So dropping into a mission initially from Jerusalem to Damascus, it requires us venturing out into the wild and avoiding patrols of opposing soldiers, climbing up various towers to get a lay of the land and figure out how the map is laid out, and maybe the best approach to finding other hidden items in the game. So once we've made it to the city, our next objective is just to get in. Getting into a city against hostile and well-guarded entrances is our first key to the stealth that we're going to need to employ to take down and find out information about our targets. Our first goal is to find civilians to help that will get us into the city, and then from there, work out who our target is. So I venture off here to the left and help this poor civilian, and after defeating the many guards around and harassing this poor dude, it provides me with a method to get in. Scholars, monks, the end of that video and the introduction where the assassin disappears, while not quite as epic as in the video, it does kind of make you feel that you're being a little bit more mischievous and sneaking in and going under the radar as opposed to just straight up vanishing. But that's okay, because from there, we can scout out a location to get a lay of the land and find out any other objectives we might have in the city. While finding these points can be easy because they're marked on your map, climbing them can be quite difficult. The further you get along, the more enemies that are posted on rooftops, and a lot of them have ranged abilities that will stop you from getting where you need to go. So you need to fight them off or sneak around, taking out who's required in order for you to get to your objective. Once you climb up to the top, you can synchronize with the Animus and to find out exactly what's going on in your local area, and from there, decide where to go. So my first move, as always, is to help out the local civilians. Why? Because these missions can get you out of trouble, especially after you've done the final assassination. Helping civilians will often give you vigilantes that can hold guards while you run, or hold them down while you kill them in fights, giving you plenty of options for escape or to execute your enemies. Once I've helped out some civilians, I usually go for the main goals to get information on our target. So this requires espionage tactics, sneaking up and, while not fully smooth, listening in to various conversations, and employing various interrogation tactics to get more information on our target. The worst of these missions, honestly, come from the assassins themselves. And while they do kind of break immersion, it is an effective tool for you to learn how to properly move and plan out your paths while running, which will provide more options for escape when you encounter more difficult targets. Another one of the missions is to assassinate various people. Usually people vaguely threatening or imposing something on our fellow assassin member. So we take them down, and you have to be stealthy, because during these specific missions, guards' alertness goes up nearly to the level that they will be when you go for your final mark. Again, slowly preparing you for the final objective and allowing you to slowly build up skill if you just don't want to go in blades first and slaughtering everyone. So usually I do all the side objectives and climb all the viewpoints before I go and meet my assassin brethren to get essentially the okay to go and kill who I need to kill. I already have all the information, so this actually kind of cuts out some of the fluff of the game. But once we get to them, we're given our target, and we have to use all the information that we learned, and usually some of the side objectives, to even get remotely close to our target, thus emphasizing that our time on these side objectives is actually important to the overall main mission. So once we find our target, we're brought into a cutscene. This target is a doctor who's doing unknown experiments on civilians, and we're tasked with taking him out. So finding a way into this hospital, which is heavily guarded, can be quite difficult. But luckily we found some local scholars that'll be able to get us into the hospital undetected. So once we've snuck past the guards and got into the hospital, I'll break away from my scholar brethren and seek out a more opportune time, finding other scholars there to get me in a little bit further into the crowd and seek out the most opportune time to kill our target. Finding and keeping track of them can be quite difficult without using eagle vision, but I prefer not using it because it requires more skill and more focus, especially with some of them that run away, or in this target, who looks almost identical to a lot of the characters around him. Once we get our mark, we're brought into a cutscene, which is kind of strange and divulges more of the story and more of Altair's questioning. I think Altair has had some sort of contact with these people beforehand, and this is implied through the various glitches in the Animus and other characters referencing Altair's mysterious memory loss. So after this curious interaction with our target, we run. Everyone is on high alert, so we need to get out of there. I attempt to sneak back into the scholars, but it's too late. Everyone there is on high alert. There is just too many people, too many eyes on me in order to slip back into the group. So I run. I honestly kind of suffer from how sensitive the climbing here is, and it auto climbing when I'm trying to just run around the objects. And then again, I accidentally get caught trying to go through a shortcut that is guarded that I would have to use other means to get into. So I run around there and go and try to find a hiding spot to decrease the amount of focus that's on me. But even when I'm hidden, things are still on high alert until I make it back to the assassin's headquarters. So luckily, we managed to escape relatively harm-free and really close to the assassin's headquarters. And from there, we can report our kill. As the story progresses, Altair asks more and more questions, again hinting back at some of the obscurities that's been happening within the Animus. But our questions are pushed aside for us to ultimately find out what the problem is at the end of the game, building up to, honestly, if you're not really paying attention, a pretty good twist. Does Assassin's Creed 1 hold up? Honestly, I think it's pretty good. The open world traveling part of it probably could have been cut down a little bit. It doesn't add a huge amount other than things to find. But other than that, the in-city environments are really good. And I hate that it locks you out of specific sections early on. And I know this is story driven, but it kind of bugs me because I would have loved to explore some of these cities right from the get go. But considering that it builds up to you gradually getting the skills and weapons that you need to get to these areas, I would have preferred a hard lesson to learn that I'm not ready for this area yet, rather than blue walls, which is vaguely linked to memories not being accessible yet. But for its time, it was pretty ahead of everything else. In fact, just about everything else took from this game. From the parkour to the way you scale buildings, some of the combo systems, and as the game and series progressed, things got better, and while you'll be able to find more fluidity in Assassin's Creed 2 and more ways to sneak around and take out your targets as the series progresses, Assassin's Creed 1 was a solid step to the right direction. And unfortunately, a step that the modern series seems to have forgot. So if you enjoyed the content today, check out my previous video on Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is an epic, fast-paced fighting game that I honestly couldn't recommend higher. Also, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Either way, I'll see you there. Bye.